we want to also speak to the reasons why we're here. We all know that the PIA was enacted in 2021, basically to provide a legal, regulatory, and fiscal framework for operations in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. Now, there are a number of factors that necessitated the creation of PIA. But I want to just highlight one before I put my friend on the spot. One of the key things that was observed over the years was that even though the oil and gas industry is a major revenue earner of Nigeria, but in terms of its contribution to our gross GTBA, it's been lagging behind. So it was necessary to create PIA to shore up that. Looking at that, sir, I'm coming to you. Can you just give us a little overview of why it was necessary to create the PIA and what are the likely impacts, it will bring positively in terms of revenue generation to the Nigerian economy generally? Thank you.
Thank you very much. PIA, like we all know, the Petroleum Industry Act was a child of policy. What do I mean by a child of policy? The Ministry of Petroleum Resources, for example, is a policy institution. And in trying to supervise and govern the industry, it observed several years back that the laws governing the industry has become old in view of the trends as at then, over 20 years ago. And there are so many laws conflicting here and there. And felt there should be a new law that will subsume most of these laws that are conflicting, that will create and give investors, those who want to come into the system, the kind of security they look for and semblance of what they see in other societies where they have been operating and operating well. So the Lukman, when Lukman was the minister, I remember he set up the processes to review all the laws, harmonize all the laws, and propose new things. And it went on and on and on and on because it's a kind of revolution, and there were resistance from those who are used to doing things the way they have been doing it since oil was discovered in Nigeria. From the IOCs, a lot of resistance here and there. So for so many years, we were unable to pass the law. And everybody was waiting that we are going to have clear regulators, clear policymakers, clear commercial institutions, and all the rest. It didn't happen until 2021. Even in 2021, when the PIA was passed, it was just passed that it is better to have that law than to continue the dialogue, the unending dialogue. So the law was passed. It's not a perfect law. There's no perfect law anywhere. But it was passed in 2021, and when it was passed, in the PIA passed, you have new institutions that emerged. And clearly, we can see that policy is being put in the doorstep of the Minister of Petroleum Resources, albeit the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. is supposed to now be the policy institution. That's the tripod we're talking about. The regulation fell on, we used to have Department of Petroleum Resources in the past that was doing whether upstream, midstream, downstream, whatever kind of regulation, the DPR was responsible. And then we had the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, was given back to by the PIA as the regulator for the upstream, that is the space, exploration, production, bringing the oil and then moving it for sales and whatever. Then the midstream and downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority was given back to as the regulator in the midstream and downstream of the industry. That is after the oil has come to the surface, and how do you move the oil? What does it transform into? How do you take it to the refinery to get the final products, the gas chain, the pipeline transportation, and whatever have you, and then how do you sell the products that emerge, that is to the filling stations and then to the final consumers. So they regulate all that space. And then you have other institutions that were created and things we had been thinking about for years. How do we resolve issues of trying to discover oil in other areas? We have the frontier exploration basins that we've been trying to explore over the years. And then the creation of the PIA is that there's a fund that must be kept for continuous exploration to look for oil, search for oil in all other parts of the country. You could see that Saudi Arabia is a desert and they have oil in abundance there. So that gives us the idea that we should continue to look for oil in the north, in the west, in the east, all over. And we've been having successes on that. The commercial institution too, from all indication, the NNPC used to be a 3-in-1, you know, the only institution that everybody goes to. Anybody, even the yam seller, wants to dip hand in NNPC, you know, over the years. Everybody just feel it's a national cake and is the institution of last resort. Everybody relies on NNPC to do anything they want to do. And you still want the NNPC as a corporation to still be profitable. It's impossible. You cannot eat your cake and have it. So it's one of the things the law came to correct, that why don't we turn the NNPC into a commercial entity? So the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation that used to be where everybody goes to look for money, now turned into Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, which is now a limited liability company to be governed by the CAMA law, the corporate law, just like any other company. The difference is that it is a fully owned government enterprise. And the structure is such that you have a creation of the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated, owning 50% of NNPC on behalf of Nigerian people. And then you have Ministry of Finance Incorporated having 50% equity. So those are the two major owners. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum, is the seal of MOPI, and the PAMSEC, Ministry of Finance, is the seal for MOFI. So these are the two people holding in trust for Nigerians the equity in this government-owned enterprise. But it's still better than what it used to be. Because what it used to be, it was like a place everybody can dip hand into, and then this has made it not to be able to live up to the expectations. So hopefully, with the arrangement now, the NNPC is now trying to be paying dividend, you know, restructuring, and all that stuff is going on to make it, and it's a transformation, it's a process, transforming to what is supposed to be. So we don't expect it to just do that overnight, and that gives us then to the next. Okay, I've not spoken about the host community, for example, in the law as well.
I'll come to that. I'll come to that.
So, okay, just giving a rundown of all the things, the advantages the law has brought to us. It has restructured all the institutions and giving each institution what it's supposed to do. Okay? And these are very clear. But now we go to the process of how do we implement this? The implementation has been on, and we've been wobbling and fumbling, trying to, get there. And this is about the third or fourth year now. You have provisions in the PIA that says maybe after every 3 years, you try and review, assess, where are we, what have we achieved, where are the areas we need to tinker with, and so on. And I believe the ministry in the current budget is going to be doing that, to call stakeholders together to look at what are the areas that we need to tinker with. How have we fared to date? But the beautiful thing is that the international community are now clear. They have a law that they can hold Nigeria onto for every aspect of the industry. And unlike the discretionary period when it's discretion that the minister uses to award oil blocks, we are now in a regime whereby oil blocks are to be bidded for properly. And this is really very promising. And people now believe if they go into bidding for oil blocks, they may win if they are able to meet all the criteria that have been set out. But in those days, before the PIA, even if you meet all the criteria in the world, there is no guarantee that you will get the block. So it's a positive, it's a plus for us. And in so many other areas, and so many incentives have been introduced to make gas a stand-alone commodity, because there are a lot of countries in the world that only thing they have is gas. And that's where they get all their foreign exchange earners. Our gas in Nigeria is...
Can do better than that. I think you went far beyond giving us a summary. It was very in-depth. But just to follow up on that, we know that out of the PIA, NUPRC has been created. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority has been created too. But when you look at certain recent developments, we find out that some of the IOCs are downgrading their assets in shallow waters, preferring to concentrate majorly on deep water. Do you think that this is giving opportunity to the indigenous companies, the Nigerian companies, to take over operations in the shallow waters? And if so, how would the PIA also encourage them to be players in the deep water operations? Thank you. I'm just coming back to you before I come to you. Yes.
Okay. Now, the issue of divestment, for example, you could see is clear in the PIA as well. Part of the things that PIA came up with is the divestment fund. There is an amount set aside from the day you start to invest in exploration. You start setting aside an amount for the day you are going to leave. And that's to take care of whatever damages you have done, in the process of exploring for oil. Now, you have to keep that fund as huge anyway, to be able to repair the soil, the environment, and so many things like that. There's a battle on that right now. Where do you keep these funds? Hitherto, people are thinking, it must be kept abroad. But you could see the NUPRC brought up this idea that no, since the money is meant to be spent in Nigeria, so it must be kept in Nigeria. So it's a whole battle between the OPTS, NUPRC, and so on. But I think they're coming to an agreement about 15% of that fund to be kept in Nigeria. There's a battle that, the banks in Nigeria don't have the capacity to keep these funds. But where we say, okay, we are setting up different new banks, Bank of Industry, African Energy Bank, which has been set up recently, and so on. So we are hoping to win that battle because a lot of money that can change a lot of things in the economy. Then the issue of the IOCs divesting, there are several reasons for divestment. It's not just a one-line thing. Practically, most of the IOCs in Nigeria have made their money back, made profit, invested their profit in other countries of the world. Whatever they have on ground in Nigeria today is profit. So if they are divesting, well, Nigerians should come in. And Nigerians have been coming in. You have Seplat today, you have ITO, you have all sorts of companies that are springing up today, which are the products or children of the divestment of IOCs from the oil and gas. Divestment is not a bad thing. It should be seen as a positive thing because we've been campaigning for years that Nigerians should be allowed to take charge of most of these companies. Even in the MOUs that were signed in those days, there are particular years that Nigerians are supposed to have been put on the boards as managers, as directors. But thank God today, divestment came about. One, energy transition is one of the reasons why some of them are divesting. Because they have committed, when they commit to a particular year, 2030 or so, that they will stop oil and gas, and they signed to a lot of charters abroad, all these companies. If they don't go along with what they have signed to, they get sanctioned in their home countries. It's not like here, okay? So they have that, and they have to weigh the consequences of continuing to operate the way they have been operating before, okay? Even though the talk has changed now from leaving oil and gas completely, okay, to allowing every country, they call it a just transition now. The whole world have now realized that people have their own peculiar needs, and that where we are looking for, they are looking for cleaner environment in other climes, we are still looking for NEPA power. We don't have power. Energy poverty is here. Multidimensional poverty we have here. We have to solve that, and you use what you have to solve your problem. So they used the things they got from our climb to solve a lot of problems. And now they are saying, leave this. So the issue of divestment should be seen as a positive thing in Nigeria. And we should consciously encourage the locals. A lot of incentives are there to encourage the locals to take over all these assets that the IOCs are leaving. And you could see that happening every day, whether marginal fields, whether other fields. But the IOCs, again, some of them felt that if they are in the deep offshore, they are going to be able to avoid a lot of issues of host communities on land, insecurity, or whatever have you. So they felt, okay, now we've made all the money we want to make from this system. We've invested the money from the system in so many places. Why should we continue to endanger our lives? So they look at the cost-benefit analysis and say, okay,
We're back.
And as Nigerians, we are encouraged to align to have kind of partnerships that will help us to be able to tap into these assets that they are divesting from. So I think it's a positive thing, and it's being taken positively by the nation, and we're having a lot of local players coming in to fill the space. So this is good for the economy, good for the country, and the areas where we're going to have challenge as the transition progresses is the area that we just try to resolve, the issue of funding. funding research institutions, and so on. You could see that almost everything we want to do in this industry, we go abroad for it. So, but now you can see Apple, African Petroleum Producers, are taking up the challenge. I remember in 2022, I led the delegation of Apple that took that decision to create the African Energy Bank. And today, to God be the glory, it's a $5 billion bank that could go up to about $130 billion. And it's been approved and set up, and it's being set up in Nigeria today. So these are some of the things that may be challenged for us to continue to do oil and gas projects. So we have such a bank, and I can tell you that most of these people who said they are divesting will still find a way to reroute their funds back to this kind of bank because they know oil and gas is very lucrative. So thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for him. I really do agree with that. The issue of divestment being an opportunity for the local players, especially having access to the divestment funds and all that. But coming to you, Dr. Paulinus, as a private sector player, how do you see the recent creation of the host community? The host community is clearly provided for in the PIA, unlike before where host communities will unilaterally just go to stop work and cause problems and insecurity. Have you benefited enough or have you benefited in that?
Thank you so much. The PIA is, of course, is a good development for Nigeria. And, of course, it will encourage transparency and, of course, attract investment and optimize operations of the sector. Coming to the host community, of course, I will talk from the technological perspective. We have not really, from experiences, benefited really from the IT perspective. We have actually done some trainings, and of course, the issues regarding the host communities and the youth, more especially, in the area of vandalization and what have you. We have benefited partially in the sense that there was a time when government sent some of these young people in the community for us to carry out capacity development to educate them on the importance of some of these, some of the infrastructures that involved in oil and gas.
Okay, let me just quickly come in there because I'm told that we've run out of time. For our audience and those, probably who will listen to us later on, before I have your final thoughts, the PIA has created the host community, recognized host community structures. And so the idea is that it's far away from what used to happen in the past, wherein there wasn't a structure of conversation with the host communities. Now the Act has recognized them, and there's a certain percentage that is accruable to the development of the host communities. So issues of development to the host community that leads to agitation, especially in the Niger Delta, where a lot of these oil deposits are there, has been taken care of. And that is a very good encouragement or means of encouraging investment, that PIA has brought. So, sir, just to come back to you, what are your final thoughts? We just hand over, wrap up this session.
Just for information, the Host Community Trust Fund created is 3% of the cost of operation of the companies in the area that will be dedicated to things that the host communities want. And it's being regulated by the NUPRC. And it was in the news yesterday that almost about 200 and something billion was paid to the first tranche of those that have been approved. So we'll begin to see a change in that space because there is a structure that ensures that the communities get those projects that they really want, unlike in the past when they just go and do something and say, we have done this. Maybe they go and do road for you. What you need is deep freezers to do your business, you know. So I think it's changed, and we are going to see the change very soon. Not that the trust funds have been recognized, have been set up, and money has been paid to some of the trust funds to be able to do projects that will benefit the communities where it's. I think all in all, the PIA is work in progress. The work in progress, but what we need to think of it, if I must say this, is that in setting up the PIA, one of the major challenges that the PIA has today, the policy, regulation, and the commercial has to be clearly separated. Whatever we are going to set up, the framework that will ensure that the policy maker, that's the Ministry of Petroleum, does policy. The regulator does regulation on a daily basis, and then the commercial man does commercial. He doesn't put his hand in policy or regulation, trying to fix prices or whatever. It's not his business. So whatever we need to do going forward, in the implementation of the PIA, the policymaker brought about this PIA. The policymaker should be given the opportunity to implement the PIA the way that it should be implemented. And then, of course, you start thinking about stakeholders' engagement towards reviewing the PIA. Where are we based on this PIA for the past 3 or 4 years? We should do that, and then people have different things they want to say about, oh, this is what should be done, this should be tinkered with, and so on. It's the right time to do a review, an audit of what we have achieved to date with the PIA, and look at the areas that we need to improve upon and probably make recommendations on amendments of the PIA going forward. So the implementation should be domiciled within the purview of the policymaker and supervisor who gave birth to the PIA to give meaning. Because it's a continuous process, work in progress. It's not a 1-2 year thing for implementation. It's continuous. And as you go along, you make your recommendations on, we need to do this, we need to do that. And I think this will make us get to the promised land quicker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very good one. Just in a summary, putting a round peg in a round hole. That's what you're saying. And also, just to my final thoughts, we should know that going forward, one thing is clear regarding the PIA in terms of being a catalyst to investments in Nigeria. Now, the international community, international organizations, IOCs, they know that there is accountability. The way of doing business in the past has been done away. There are legal frameworks. There is the issue of transparency. Like you mentioned, NNPC, the way contracts are procured now is quite different from what it used to be. So please, if you're out there, be encouraged to come and be a player in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. Thank you very much. Thank you.